Good evening, everyone. We're going to go ahead and call this meeting of the Orange Township Board of Trustees to order. Ms. Bonnie, would you take the roll?
Yes. Trustee Ringel?
Yes.
Trustee Faust?
Yes.
And Trustee Knapp?
Here, yes.
The next agenda item is the Pledge of Allegiance, so if you would all please stand with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We're here this evening for the hearing on zoning application RCOD 24-07 Vision Acquisitions, LLC. I'll go over the agenda for this evening. So first, some ground rules. We'll have our staff present their report on the zoning application. The applicant will then make any additional presentation that they would like to. The board will ask some initial comments and provide comments and any questions. And then once the board has asked those questions, the applicant can respond, and then we will do public comment. We'll go through some ground rules for public comment when we get to that point in time. We'll then close public comment, and then the board will follow up with public comments, questions from the public with the applicant, and the applicant will have the opportunity to respond to any additional questions or comments from the board, and then the board will make its decision. So without further ado, I'll turn the meeting over to our zoning director, Mr. Duffy, for his staff report.
Thank you, Chairman Ringel. We are here to discuss rezoning case ZON-24-07 for property located at 0 Columbus Pike near the corner of Home Road and US 23. There are two parcels in question. One is 25.476 acres, which is the parcel to be amended, and then 9.914 acres to the parcel north of Home Road, including that right-of-way. The zoning is a planned commercial and office district. The applicant is requesting to amend the currently effective development plan to allow for the construction of 196 multifamily units on the southern 15.1 acres of the site. The property was originally zoned from farm residential, or FR1, to planned commercial and office district originally in 2004. The development plan was then amended in 2017 under zoning case ZON-17-04 to allow for a number of commercial uses on the site and to update development standards. As for the comprehensive plan, the property is located in sub-area 8 in the 2018 Orange Township Comprehensive Land Use Plan, Planning Orange. Recommendation 8-5 reads, east side of Gooding Boulevard preferred use is planned office use as transition to residential. No single-use big box retail in this sub-area. The parcel is surrounded to the north by an FR1 parcel as well as Home Road right-of-way. To the south is planned commercial and office district where the Delaware County Library branch is located. To the east is US 23 and then planned commercial and office district on the other side. And then to the west is single-family planned residential district and the neighborhood of Clear Creek. You can see the applicant's development plan proposal on the screen there in front of you. I'll go over a brief summary of the amendment request. So the district would effectively be split into three parcels, one on the north side of Home Road, and then the current single parcel south of Home Road would be split into two. The northern of those two new parcels would remain unchanged under the current planned commercial district, while the southern's 15.1 acres would stay in the planned commercial district, but with a development plan that allows for multifamily uses. This would be a divergence to allow multifamily uses in the planned commercial district. The proposal is for 196 total multifamily units. The majority of the units would be within four large buildings identified as buildings C, D, E, and F, while the remainder would be in smaller carriage houses above garages. Two of the large buildings would each contain 48 units, and the other two would each contain 44 units. Buildings G, H, I, J, K, and L would be the carriage houses, which would be 2 units apiece. The four larger apartment buildings are proposed to be 42 feet and 10.5 inches in height. 50 feet is the maximum allowed per code in the planned commercial district. The elevations were updated to be in accordance with the height measurement per the zoning resolution, which is from finished grade to the tallest point of the building. Building C, D, E, and F list a stone veneer as the primary siding material near the bottom, with LP siding making up the majority of the exterior materials on those buildings. Carriage house buildings list LP siding as a primary siding material. Elevations are also included for a clubhouse, identified as Building A, as well as a fitness building, which is Building B. Then the building setbacks would be as follows: 80 feet from Columbus Pike, or US 23, 70 feet from the southern property line, 45 feet from Gooding Boulevard, and then 70 feet from the northern property line to be split off. As for amenities, as mentioned earlier, one clubhouse is proposed along with the fitness building. There's also an amenity space shown on the site plan, which shows a swimming pool. The applicant has provided some amenity reference images, which include a pool, seating areas, outdoor kitchens, and volleyball. As for open space, according to the open space plan provided by the applicant, buildings are proposed to cover a little over 88,000 square feet of the site, which is less than the 18,000 square feet per acre, which is required per the development plan, so it does comply with that requirement. Total open space provided is approximately 57%, which does exceed the requirement of 25%. For parking, a total of 458 parking spaces are proposed. 36 of those would be in the garages underneath the carriage houses, and then 422 surface parking spaces. Per the zoning resolution, 3 spaces are required per multifamily unit, thus requiring a divergence, as this would require 588 parking spaces for the 196 units. The proposed parking ratio would be 2.34 spaces per unit. There are parking setbacks as well as building setbacks. So the parking setbacks would be 48 feet from 23, and then 45 feet from the southern property line, Gooding Boulevard, and then the northern property line as well. As for landscaping, a mix of trees, deciduous, evergreen, and ornamental are proposed for the site, as well as various shrubs. 22 street trees and 102 shrubs are proposed to be planted along the 23 frontage, along with 18 street trees, 28 evergreen trees, and 91 shrubs along the Gooding Boulevard frontage. A 3 to 5 foot mound has also been added to the proposal along the Gooding Boulevard frontage since the original submittal. Total of just under 10,000 square feet of parking landscape islands are proposed, along with 47 parking lot trees. The trees do meet the street tree requirement of the development text, as do the shrubs and all the landscaping plans. For lighting, a total of 43 various light fixtures are proposed to be mounted on 14-foot lighting poles, as well as 30 wall-mounted fixtures for a total of 73 lighting fixtures. The foot candle levels near the property lines are all within the requirements as required by Section 21 of the zoning resolution. There is one divergence requested from Section 21.12 H3B for a light uniformity ratio of 16:1, which exceeds the requirement of 10:1. There would be spots brighter as compared to the darkest spot on the site. For signage, the applicant is proposing one monument-style sign with a total display area of 36 square feet with a height of 6 feet. The sign would be set back 20 feet from Gooding Boulevard and would have halo-illuminated channel letters mounted on standoffs that would comply with the signage code of the zoning resolution. One wall-mounted sign would be placed on the east-facing elevation of Building D, is also proposed. It would be mounted 32 feet in height to the top of the sign. It would measure 7 by 7 feet for 49 feet of sign area. That would require a divergence for maximum height for that wall sign. As for the access, the applicant is proposing 2 full accesses on Gooding Boulevard and no access on 23. An existing sidewalk runs along the east side of Gooding, which would remain, and a number of interior pedestrian walkways are proposed throughout the site as well. As for divergences, there are a total of 9, let's see, that's a holdover. Pardon me. A divergence from Section 14.03 to permit multifamily in the planned commercial and office district. A divergence from Section 21.12 H3B for the light uniformity ratio, as mentioned earlier. Divergence from 14.06 B10, which discusses the timetable for development and the phasing of the property. A divergence from Section 21.01A, which is the dimensions for parking spaces. The Orange Township zoning resolution requires that parking spaces be 9 feet by 20 feet in length. The applicant is proposing 9 feet by 18 feet parking spaces. That is an industry standard. A divergence from section 21.01B for paving, which requires that all common parking areas and adjacent aisles or driveways shall be paved with asphaltic material or cement. The applicant is proposing the possibility of some permeable pavers with permission from the fire department. Divergence from 21.01D for the parking area location. This discusses where the parking lot can be located in relation to the buildings, because there's a requirement that they are to be located to the rear or to the side of the buildings, and this would have some parking in the front of the building. A divergence from 21.01E for Phase 1 for the parking counts. So again, that divergence is for the number of parking spots. And then two other divergences, one from 21.10, which is non-residential uses shall be not located closer than 100 feet to any lot line of a residential district. We believe that this is not really relevant to the amendment request at hand, but rather that attaches to the parcel to the north of Home Road, because that's zoned commercial, and it technically abuts an FR1 district, which is owned by the All Shepherds Lutheran Church. And that divergence was already approved in the previous zoning. A divergence, and then the final divergence from section 22.03C1 for parcel 3 to permit a sign to be mounted on the building at most 40 feet above finished grade. In terms of review from other agencies, the Delaware County Regional Planning Commission recommended denial of the amendment request at their meeting on November 21 of 2024. They had the following additional comments, which I will read. In general, the proposed use and style of construction could blend well with the community. However, the comp plan does not support residential uses here. Additionally, the use is not permitted in the planned commercial district. While it is permitted in the multifamily planned residential district, it would exceed the permitted density by 167 units. Staff is not completely opposed to residential use at this location, as it may blend well with future commercial uses. If the Orange Township Zoning Commission and trustees decide to approve the request, staff recommends reducing the building type to 2-story, which better reflects the multifamily development pattern in the area and along US 23. This would allow for a reduction in parking and pavement and reduce or improve several of the parking divergences. Additionally, the MFPRD, where this use is permitted, only allows for a maximum building height of 35 feet and 50 feet is proposed. And then 2, to commit to the completion of sidewalks along Gooding Boulevard and Home Road. The Orange Township Zoning Commission recommended denial of this application by a 3-2 vote at their meeting on December 3rd, 2024. That is all I have for the staff report at this time. I'm on hand if the board has any questions, and I believe the applicant has a presentation as well.
All right. If the applicant would like to come forward, please state your name and address and go ahead with your presentation.
Great. Trustees, my name is Donald Plank. I am the attorney for the property owner. And I've been asked to do a brief introduction to give it some perspective to what the history of the site. It's important that I define who property and owner. The owner of the property, although they've had various entity names, it's been the Block family. They purchased the property in 1964, so they've had the property for 60 years. And the property that we're talking about is the 84 acres originally zoned, and that included the Epcon property, the Epcon development, Gooding Boulevard, relocated Home Road, 23 acres that's east of Gooding Boulevard, and the 4 acres north of Home Road. That's what the owner considers the property. The zoning did take place in 2004. At that time, 68 acres was zoned planned commercial, and 14 acres were zoned planned residential, limited to 45 units. There have been attempts to develop it under the zoning, which included a Kroger's, a Menards, Target, Amazon, all for different reasons. Those did not occur. The blocks want me to make it clear that there were a number of things that they've done in terms of improvements in the area. In 2013, they granted the easement for the pedestrian bridge at no cost to the county. They gave that easement. In 2014, Home Road was relocated by the county. the property owner is paying 1/3 and continues to pay 1/3 of the cost of the extension or the relocation of Home Road. And in 2018, Gooding Boulevard was constructed by both Epcon and the Block family, and they paid the full price for that area between, with the frontage along their property. There are 5 events, major events, that have shaped the future development of this property. The 2008 economic crisis, the Epcon development in 2018, the pandemic in 2020, Intel, and State Route 23. And I'll explain those in a little bit more detail on how that impacts. The economic crisis, which we sometimes call the housing crisis, and I can tell you because I do land development as my, to make a living, development stopped, especially housing stopped. And then coming out of that crisis, there was an incredible increase in the demand for housing and a significant demand, or at least interest, in developing housing at this on the 84 acres. Pulte, I don't know if you recall, but Pulte made an attempt to rezone the property, but eventually Epcon was successful in getting the property approved for rezoning in 2018. The second major event, as I stated, was the 2018 Epcon development. What that did was, for the first time, we've got rooftops. And it starts to take a look at the 25 acres or the 23 acres east of Gooding Boulevard, how that then impacts the fact that we now have rooftops. The pandemic, office and retail, the commercial uses that this property is zoned for, those developers, my clients, are still trying to figure out what the pandemic has done and what that means for the future of retail and certain retail development. There has been, since the pandemic, an increase in the desire for walkable communities. Whatever, there was a desire of that before the pandemic. It became even more intent afterwards. We're seeing, for example, in downtown Columbus, where office buildings are being vacated and there's conversion to apartments to create that walkable downtown. Intel. There was a significant housing demand before Intel, and then we have the Intel announcements. And the demand is for affordable housing. And when I say affordable, I mean, apartments are considered affordable housing. And no matter what the rental amount is, it's because they don't have to come down, a user does not have to come up with a down payment. And so they go right into it, to the development, they go right into the unit, and it is considered affordable. Interesting, and I, as a zoning attorney, I like having an exhibit, but this is just, and you may have seen this map, but this is created by Morpsey. And what Morpsey has done is, from the Intel development, they have outlined the areas of distance to Intel from housing. And this area is within 30 and 40 minutes from the Intel development. And then finally, the State Route 23, we've all heard about the intended improvements for State Route 23. What that has done for this site is that it has taken the right in, right out that was approved as part of the original zoning, and ODOT has made it clear that we will no longer get that right in, right out, even though they had proved that in the past. So there will be no access, direct access to or from this property from State Route 23. What that does, it takes away what I call the regional retail user. The focus will not be so much on 23 traffic, although that'll be helpful in terms of the eventual retail on the site. And it'll look inward towards housing, towards rooftops. And that sort of brings us to today. And so Vision will be doing a presentation on what we, or the blocks, consider phase 2 of the 84 acres development. Phase 1 being the Epcon development, phase 2 being the apartments, and phase 3 being the commercial. And as a part of the presentation by Vision, you will see some of the commercial planning that that this development allows the blocks to consider. The blocks will continue to own the remaining 10 acres. The blocks are developers, and they are likely to end up being the developer of the 10-acre retail because it's now of a size that they can handle. And I also would point out that the choice of Vision as the applicant tonight and coming forward with the apartment was made by the blocks after many people, many apartment developers were interested in this site. But Vision, and I hate to use this, Vision basically complemented the vision that the blocks have in terms of the remainder of the property. And with that, I'll turn that over to Vision, but I think it's important that we know that the developer's position and how he sees this project going forward.
Good evening, trustees and staff, residents of Clear Creek and the public. Pete LaRose, Vision Development. We originally engaged in conversations with leadership in the spring of 2023 with the idea of identifying a site that would be ideal for multifamily housing, one that was close in proximity to jobs, retail, commercial, and convenience-based amenities throughout the submarket. The site we're searching for would respond to the exponential population growth of the county, where demand greatly outweighed supply. Not only did we engage with Orange Township leadership, but we met with other stakeholders in the community, including Delaware County economic development officials, Olentangy School superintendent and treasurer, and members of the Clear Creek community. Our conversations related to the need for high-quality rental housing in one of the fastest-growing counties in the Midwest go beyond just providing rooftops for the thousands of people moving to this submarket every year. Increasing housing supplies allows for businesses in the community to attract and retain employees. Increasing housing supply provides the fundamental desire of businesses, which is to attract more customers. Increasing housing supply balances out demand that has reached unsustainable levels. The average single-family home in Orange Township is over $500,000, which means if you can't afford to put $100,000 down, there's no home for you here, which means you're less likely to work here and less likely to spend your hard-earned dollars here. The renters in our communities are the future single-family homeowners. The renters in our community are people spending their money in your restaurants, in your stores. The renters are the employees that work at your businesses. The apparent resistance to supply and density only creates a more unaffordable market for people relocating to the community. In Central Ohio, we're experiencing the greatest economic and population boom in the region's history, but this party will come to an end if we don't address housing. According to Esri, Delaware County is poised to grow by 13,000 people every year for the next 25 years. And Orange Township alone is expecting its population to grow by 10% between now and 2029. As communities and developers, we're tasked with trying to find the balance of responding to the metrics I just cited, but in the case of this region, county, and township, the response has been inadequate and threatens the prosperity many currently benefit from here in Central Ohio. In the case of this particular property, commercial and retail builders and their end users, food and beverage operators, medical office users, and other retailers have expressed to the seller and to Vision that without more rooftops, this site is not viable for commercial retail development. This is about more than just rooftops. This is about creating sustainable economic development and a thriving community that has a healthy balance of all uses, including high-quality multifamily housing. Since the spring of 2023, Vision has cooperated with all different members of the community, so much so that we've redesigned a building type that didn't exist before these public hearings. We've incorporated design elements into our plan that set a new precedent in terms of privacy, safety, and landscaping considerations. And we're committed to partnering with the seller and township on additional traffic and public infrastructure improvements that are being contemplated for the future. Like other residential projects that have come before you for a vote, we are indeed asking for variance and divergences, but we do so with nearly 2 years of evaluating the submarket, this site, and how we can develop a project that is actually viable. In conjunction with the seller's efforts to create a vibrant mixed-use project that will benefit the entire township, Vision is committed to continuing to partner with the township, neighbors, and all stakeholders to see the best possible plan get developed. At Vision, we don't just build communities, we create community, and we intend to do the same here. Thank you for your time this evening, and we appreciate your consideration.
Good evening. My name's Todd Foley. I'm the work with Pod Design. We're the land planner and landscape architect for Vision Development. And I apologize, I'm the most long-winded person at this table, so I'm going to try to expedite our presentation here. But I'd like to expound upon some of the details that Robin provided, highlight some things that we feel are a strong component to why we're here, why we think this project is good for the township. So appreciate your patience as we go through it. I think we're all relatively familiar with the site location. We show this this aerial view to just kind of highlight, where we exist in the Orange Township universe. I think there's a lot of great things that surround this project. Our neighbors to the west, the amenities of the North Orange Park and the library to the south, the Mount Carmel Health Facility and its things that it provides the community, the future development of the Kerbler property that abuts Home Road. So these are all well-established pieces that impact our site and that we have the ability to interact with. We really are not just solely focused on the 26 acres that we're looking at. There's more to our project. So next slide, please. Thank you. This exhibit highlights, we've taken a look at the original PCD that's in place, and essentially they're a creation of three parcels, if you will. The parcel 1 to the left, parcel 2 in the middle, parcel 3 in the south, the right part of the sheet, which is the south. Parcel 3 represents the area of focus as it relates to the multifamily component. Parcel 1 and 2 are intended to remain commercial as was approved, and as Don alluded to, we've done some additional planning efforts in conjunction with the property owner to try to demonstrate our thoughts on the commercial as it could come online and interact with the project we're proposing. This all started with the idea of trying to be able to strengthen this original PCD zoning by adding this residential component, and it's a market rate plus component. There's obviously different levels of multifamily housing that you can see in the marketplace, and Vision is a developer of market rate plus, meaning that they are, they build and construct above what are considered market standards, with the goal of creating and maintaining a mixed-use development for the township. Mixed use has a variety of words and applications. In our case, we are dealing with a lot of logistical components that guide where we, in our professional experience, know where those different uses are going to go and how the framework goes that we would be using from a planning perspective. The goal being that our project is a walkable live, work, play opportunity for the residents, both of the multifamily project, but also those that would be a part of whatever commercial development comes online, and has access to these great amenities that are directly around this site as a whole that I've just mentioned, and all keeping a balanced approach to this design effort is the fundamental goal. As Pete mentioned, it is a desired housing product in the marketplace right now, and there's an opportunity in the township. That's why Vision's here, that we are proposing this. It's high quality, and it allows people to enter into the township and potentially, live, work, and play again, as I mentioned, and could become more active members of the township in the form of home buyers. The additional rooftops that Don mentioned, it's a critical component of how commercial and retail development comes online. You all know this from a leadership perspective. And so there is an inherent relationship between these things. And our experience across many years and many projects is commercial is always the last element to come online. And so we feel that the injection of an opportunity to do residential on this project site is exactly what this next phase of this project needs in order to provide that new commercial and opportunities for the township. So we are able to do that in a way that is going to create a scale and really kind of soften the impact of this type of development to our neighbors to the west and other users to the south, our use potentially will provide great transitional value to what is going to be clearly a changed 23 over the next 10 to 20 years with whatever ODOT comes out of their study with. So there's a very purposeful intent that we have with what we're doing, keeping that in mind. The addition of the multifamily, while it is reducing the commercial acreage that's available, it's actually allowing us to create opportunities for more appropriately scaled commercial and retail for this area. So, you're not a big box user, a Home Depot, a Menards, or whatever. With the residents of Clear Creek to the west, that's not appropriate use here from our perspective. And so, smaller scale commercial and smaller scale goods and services are what we think thrive here, and we'll present some of those ideas to you as we move along. So we can move to the next slide, please. Again, just highlighting, or I'm sorry, actually, if you wouldn't mind going back. So one thing I want to highlight, we are tasked with balancing an existing PCD that's in place that has standards and has divergences and elements that we need to maintain because of their relationship to commercial development. And so the parcel 1 and parcel 2, as it identifies setbacks and access points and walk locations and all those elements and details, those are being maintained as they're currently approved to date. The parcel 3, which is the parcel to the right here, we have, through a process of working with all the groups that Pete mentioned, we have introduced additional setbacks along Gooding Boulevard and but maintained the approved access points where they're at. So that is an increase of a 45-foot building and parking setback along Gooding Boulevard for parcel 3. That's an increase from the 30-foot building and 10-foot parking that exists today. And our frontage along 23 would remain the same, as would the south. And for us, as Don mentioned, the critical thing that's causing some reconsideration of the site is that removal of the opportunity for the right in, right out on 23. That's a significant game changer for commercial users from a planning perspective, and so we're having to kind of respond to that. So the next slide, please. To just graphically demonstrate some of the comments about our height requests that we have. So the areas in light blue are going to maintain the current approved 50-foot maximum building height district that relates to the commercial and retail uses that could come online. The green area represents that portion that we are proposing to reduce our building heights down from that 50. Our original plans that we have presented to our neighbors to the west and to the township and even through planning commission have all to up until our post planning commission hearing where they voted, we were utilizing 50-foot height district or 50-foot height restraint. We have gone back and committed to reducing the height for the residential, and we'll get into more of that detail here shortly, but that reduction down to 44 feet. Our buildings are a little under that, but because how you calculate your building height in the township, we need to make sure that we can balance the grading impacts and perform the building setback as we're demonstrating. So the buildings are actually 42'10" to the peak, but so that's what this exhibit's demonstrating. Next slide, please. So real quickly, this was our original site plan that we brought before both informally to our neighborhood meetings and the township, and also to our initial planning commission hearing. This was a very Gooding, I call it Gooding Boulevard centric approach, where we were focused on engaging Gooding Boulevard with our residents, with the buildings, with the visibility of the elevations of the building, recognizing that 23 is only going to continue to become more intense of a use. And while from a planning perspective that makes sense, when we spent more time really having open conversations with our neighbors to the west and trying to understand what their vision is for how Gooding can develop through here, it proved to be not the right approach. And this was a 220-unit project. The buildings, the four main buildings, all were what I'll call a hybrid 4-story, 3-story building. The ends of the buildings had a 4-story elevation to them. The majority of the center of the building had a 3-story elevation height to it. And with this current design, the closest elevation of our proposed buildings to our closest neighbor across Gooding Boulevard was 190 feet plus or minus. So we were about 90 feet from our right-of-way on Gooding Boulevard. Next slide, please. So fast forward to today, there's a lot that kind of occurred in between what you see up here now and the previous plan I just had, but we left our initial planning commission hearing. We went back to the drawing board and really redesigned the entire site for the most part. We really were focused on how can we create a more residential scale transition zone from Gooding Boulevard into our site. That transition zone comprised of landscaping, of what types of buildings we're putting adjacent to the road that would be visually impactful to our neighbors. Also looking at where the larger massing of the buildings, the kind of critical massing of the buildings occur for the multifamily, and then subsequently how we address 23. And so we came out of all that effort with, candidly, and we've been very open about this, I think that process with our neighbors, it's resulted in a better site plan from our perspective. We have some graphics that'll show more of that detail, but we've been able to increase the larger building setbacks from our closest neighbors across Gooding, an additional 55 feet. So we're over 245 feet right now from those residents, and our closest residents were 148 feet from the right-of-way for those larger buildings. We utilized what we refer to as our carriage buildings. Those are the 3 rectangular buildings adjacent to Gooding that are 2-story buildings, garages on the lower level, and then 2 one-bedroom units above. They're more residential in scale, and through our discussions with the residents of Clear Creek, they felt that would be a more desirable thing in lieu of having a larger apartment building up there. And it allows us to kind of have a little bit of a building canvas to then place mounding and more landscaping in front of it, so that we truly have this kind of gradient of buffering from Gooding that creates a residential kind of character feel and allows for us to still maintain what we think is a really important part of the project, this central amenity area. It's a kind of a core component of all Vision communities, is a really strong amenity package for the residents that come. These are, again, market rate plus type units, and so with that comes a demand for a higher attention to detail on the amenities and I'll say the fluff of the projects, meaning the pool areas and the outdoor sport court activities and open space and such. So the other part that occurred at this transition point was, and this is something that we left the second planning commission hearing where they rendered their vote, with the commitment to reduce the buildings to all 3-story heights. So there was an effort that was done pretty quickly after that meeting, in advance of us being here with you tonight, to reduce the height so that we have a consistent 3-story composition to the buildings. It required some reworking of units on the ends of the buildings, but it brought us down to a consistent height level. With that came a reduction in density from 220 to 196 at 24 units, which is it's a substantial reduction for a variety of factors. So that, combined with the commitment of increased setbacks, the commitment of additional landscape buffering along Gooding and 23, and then the other big component that we looked at, our stormwater analysis has dictated that our retention area, our stormwater management, is going to need to occur for this portion of the site kind of centrally located. And so we've designed this in such that it can become a kind of a core feature for when the commercial comes online and our residential piece comes online. We have additional pathways that we've provided around the lake. We have some graphics that'll demonstrate, but we think, restaurant patios and other kind of elements could exist on the commercial area that will accentuate that area, that retention feature, and provides more of a residential scale type of feel from Gooding Boulevard as you look at it. As Robin mentioned, we did increase our parking ratios, and that was a result of numerous discussions in an effort to make sure that we are adequately providing the services and the parking spaces that our residents need without impacting anything beyond the site. And we are more than comfortable with that ratio, given our experience with all the other projects that Vision has created. So the last component that we have committed to through this process is at the terminus of the pedestrian bridge that goes over 23, where we basically, right where that path meets the right-of-way on Gooding Boulevard, of creating what we're calling kind of a pedestrian node that's going to have some benches. It's going to have a bike repair station that's there, and it's intended to be a public use. That we think is, and for orientation's sake, if you're familiar, right now there is a current crosswalk that's in place that's striped. That would terminate right into it. So it's a logical kind of potential meeting place for people who are using the path system, maybe going to the park or going back over the east side. But we thought it's an opportunity to provide something that can accentuate this great connection and great feature that's already there with the bridge over 23. So this up here is just quickly demonstrating and highlighting those buildings that we made the adjustment from an orientation perspective. So next slide, please. You can see how the combination of the increase in the setbacks, which is that long red band, and then shifting and rotating the buildings, the larger three-story buildings, has lessened our impact, our visual impact. Combining that with the height reduction has resulted in a way less impactful interaction with the Gooding and also our neighbors to the west. Next slide, please. So this slide here is highlighting what our pedestrian component to our project. So the brown lines, orange lines, depending upon how you see that color, represent a little over a mile of sidewalk and or path elements that will be brought online with our project. That's not including what's already in place along Gooding, obviously not the pathway and the bridge connection that goes over. So we view a tremendous amount of opportunity on the northern part of the project, page left, of providing pedestrian connectivity to the commercial. It could occur in many locations. Right now, we don't have a definitive commercial user plan that we're approving tonight. We're just trying to talk about the residential piece, but we know that that path on the north side of the pond is going to allow us basically unlimited opportunity to engage and to marry these two parts of the project up together. So, and as I mentioned, that's a little over a mile of pathway and a very small site from that perspective. Highlighting the open space composition of the project. So with a denser building like we're proposing, there's a direct correlation to our ability to provide a more green and open kind of project landscape-wise perspective. So 57% plus or minus of this parcel 3 is in green space. So that percentage represents the surface area of the retention pond. It's also including setbacks and all these areas where we're putting landscaping. An intense amount of that open space is occurring on the west side of the site. And, by designing our buildings the way that we have them designed and being able to locate our parking, how we have it, maintaining the ratio that we are proposing, it's allowed for us to increase that open space. And I can say with confidence, if we were considering an all-commercial project on a site like this, be it a larger user, office user, whatever, our parking needs would be much higher and our open space numbers would be much lower. And so that's another core reason why we think this use is appropriate when we start to think about how we can transition from 23 to the EPCON community and to all those that utilize Gooding Boulevard to the west. So, building architecture. So right now, the site has a large community clubhouse facility. There's a separate detached fitness building that is a CrossFit style building. That's a popular core component of all vision projects, extremely popular. Those are represented by the 4 images you see on the top. The bottom images, the left is the front elevation of the carriage. Apologize, the bottom right is not applicable anymore. The previous version had just independent garage buildings. Those are no longer a part of the plan. So, but materials, a stone veneer, composite wood siding, and then the combination with the hardy panel, that cementitious kind of board, is what you're going to see compositionally on all the different building architecture. You can go to the next slide too, so we can look at the larger buildings. But these buildings are designed with a lot of different roof peak organization and locations, large balcony type areas, changing of materials to kind of help scale the building and bring it down a little bit visually. They are larger buildings, but again, as I mentioned, that's somewhat intentional so that we can balance and provide more open space and be more efficient with some of the site design. The warm neutral colors, most likely very similar to what exist in the township and other communities, are what's envisioned. So these kind of like warm grays and tans will create what we think is going to be a very pleasing and appropriate way to fenestrate the buildings as we consider some of our surrounding development and surrounding users. So these next slides here are something that we created at the request of some of our interactions with the neighbors and the Planning Commission to try to help communicate the visual impact along Gooding for the multifamily buildings. These are representative of our current site plan. Now, the current one you see here is showing when our previous buildings were at a 4-story elevation perspective. And obviously the landscaping here, we are representing what probably is more like a year 5, 6, it's not installed date and it's not 20 years from now. So we're doing our best to be realistic with what that impact might be. The next slide, this slide is looking northwest to southeast. So you can see that reduction of that 4th floor has an impact on what's visibly seen from Gooding. And then, one of the discussion points that we've had throughout the process is just having an awareness to, what can be permitted and built today. And so the current setbacks, and I'll reiterate the 2 slides before, we're demonstrating the location of our buildings with our current setbacks, so the increased setbacks that we have. But, the current PC development allows for a larger building. This represents a 50-foot height building, location of parking that could be visible there along Gooding. And so we think it's really important contextually to be considering that balance as we consider what's best for this site. Next slide, please. This is sliding farther south on Gooding, looking at our entry feature. Part of that redesign that I was speaking of put us in a situation where we felt relocating our clubhouse and the fitness element and taking these more residential scale buildings and placing them near the access point, so this access point aligns with Clear Creek's current access point, was appropriate. And so, this kind of quadrant of the site, the entry feature, the signage, you see the mounding and the landscaping really creates an opportunity to try to mirror and scale appropriately this part of the site as we transition from west to east. Again, this is showing the 4-story buildings, and then if you go one more, you can see the reduction, and it drops it down again. So there is an impact from this view as well. And the last slide is just, again, reiterating, that potential impact that a non-residential use like we're proposing could have. And then the last set here is highlighting more the direct impact. This is north of our access point, in between our two access points, but again, this is more meant to demonstrate the intensity of starting at the right-of-way, providing, deciduous and evergreen shrubs, more trees, more evergreen trees, more deciduous trees than what's required out there with the current PCD, and the reduction of the building heights. We think all creates an appropriate kind of blending of what our proposal is with what's visible from Gooding. One other comment to note, and it's not necessarily something that's been demonstrated in the packet, but through our interactions with EPCON, was a commitment by Vision to work with the residents there to provide some additional tree plantings on their side of the street. There are some areas that, when we start to consider any development, whether it's Vision or something else, that probably could utilize some additional tree plantings and things like that. And so we've made that commitment, and Vision has been gracious to make that commitment to work with them directly. That's not something necessarily the township has purview over, but I think it just demonstrates their willingness to be good neighbors and know that there's a partnership here that hopefully could last for a while. So the next slide, I'm going to we're up. I got a few more slides after this, but we've put together if you could back out of this and open up that animation video potentially, please. So we've done a modeling of the project, and this is originating at the current southern entry point. And the goal with this is really to kind of show and give better perspective to how our site might look, or how it will look, rather. There's that node I was referring to as you come down the pathway. Contextually, looking at our site, and then also it's going to start to give you a little bit of a snapshot of the commercial element to the north, and we'll kind of end the presentation here. That's a large amenity space. But you can start to see how easily and how effectively we're able to start to consider, maybe pause that if you could real quick. Thank you. Oop. There we go. Would you mind just go back just a smidge? Sorry to do that. I know it's a little cumbersome. So I mentioned the stormwater facility that we're going to need to have there, and our thought process is that the residential commercial kind of uses that could exist and we would anticipate would be appropriate and potentially developable from the commercial aspect really kind of activates this central core. We were able to provide lots of pedestrian walkways. Those buildings all are demonstrating how restaurant patios, coffee shop patios, all those kind of experiential kind of features that can accompany the buildings. We see this type of building being constructed. We have a project in Grandview Crossing. Maybe you've been out there or seen it in Grandview on Dublin Road. The buildings that are along Dublin Road, the rail, they are double-sided buildings. They have patio spaces. So it's an opportunity to create what we think is going to be the more desirable type of commercial, both for our residents and everyone else. The site on the northern part of the home road kind of represents a potential hotel or hospitality type use that would fit appropriately in that area. Candidly, what's being communicated to us from the county engineer and the results of what ODOT's going through is basically a non-committal to us on how access and traffic lights and all things that have been discussed and considered previously are going to come to fruition. So, there's been discussions about a traffic light at Home Road and Gooding, and the county engineer has told us that is not something that would be permitted until ODOT studies are complete. And so we, in our head, we're evaluating what viable kind of commercial uses are going to potentially be interested and exist, and we know through some of our conversations that is a viable hotel site up there and is something that could support in the region. So if you don't mind going back to the presentation, I got 3 more slides here and then we can wrap it up. So this is a plan view of that animation that we just provided to you. And I think you can see the integration, while we're not directly combining and interlacing commercial with the residential, I think for the scale and the size of this site, the walkability of the 23 acres overall, south of Home Road, we envision, these neighborhood-style buildings, neighborhood-scale buildings that can have, smaller traditional users, potentially a daycare, bank, those kind of like local goods and services that would be appropriate for this use. But they can all kind of center around that central stormwater facility, that central pond area. And then we know we're going to have another need for stormwater on the corner of Gooding and Home Road. So, that's another feature. So all this combined really, we think, is an incredible opportunity to create a meaningful experience as you move along Gooding and the exposure from Home and 23. If you want to go to the next slide, please. And then, so these are just aerial perspective views that kind of slow that animation down a little bit to demonstrate what we think is an appropriate scale of commercial development and our discussions with the property owner and other users that Vision has interacted with. This highlights that central core a little bit more, and so we think that these patio space opportunities, just the ability to circulate around that feature, we think is at a minimum a very great opportunity, whether a user could have an outdoor patio or something, but just to have that feature in the central part of the site is, we think, a great opportunity. And then that last slide here is, and we can kind of maybe leave that up there, that's kind of representing of how this thing as a whole would potentially be experienced by the community through here. So that's kind of culminates what we were hoping to expound upon. Obviously, we know there's a lot of questions and comments and concerns, so we look forward for the opportunity to respond back to that. But thank you for your patience and your time to kind of go through that. So,
Thank you for the presentation.
Yep.
I'm sure the board has some comments and questions. I'll go first. Yeah. So as the applicant's probably aware, we have a joint economic development district in the township. We've been encouraging all commercial development to go into that JED. It will allow for net profits taxes to be charged on the businesses that are in that district. Hopefully diversify the township's tax base so we can try and provide all of the amenities and services that we want here in the township without, relying solely on real property taxes like we have historically. Would the applicant, the landowner, be willing to commit to joining the Joint Economic Development District with their proposal if it were to go forward?
Yeah, I've had that discussion with the owner. It's very typical that a developer of retail will agree to that because they're not the ones paying the taxes. It'll be the users. But we've already committed that we would do that. We would join the JED and participate in that.
Okay.
That would be for the other, all the parcels that are not included in this development to the
Correct.
commercial? Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
And would it include this residential portion as well?
I don't know how JEDs include residential, but I know you can TIF it, and because it's considered commercial, it's not considered residential under the TIF statute. But that's not what we're talking about. All the retail would be committed to the JED. And we can do that not as a part of this, but sooner than later, because there's no reason not to do that now.
Yeah, yep. From my understanding, there's no obligation that you enter into the JED currently.
Correct.
So we appreciate that.
Go ahead. Okay. Thank you, Dawn, for coming and giving us the history. That was helpful for me, as I'm only 3 years here in the township on the board. So that was helpful. Also to Vision, you guys have, and Todd, you guys have done a number of iterations, and this has been a long process, and you've listened to the community, and we appreciate that, and you've taken feedback. A number of questions, nothing is ordered in any sort of way, it's just my brain dumping, okay? I think it was, Pete, you commented about the North Orange, about if this property were to go forward, then it would allow the commercial, it'd be more beneficial for the commercial, and saying that commercial development would need this 196 apartment complex to, you know, kind of get it off the ground and say that's a viable reason. So just confirming that the existing single-family development in North Orange, the condos over behind the fire station, the Clear Creek subdivision, the Orange Grand Schottenstein property across the street, all of that is not enough to support commercial. All the existing residential is not enough to support commercial. And these may be rhetorical questions, so.
On this particular site, my conversations with users we'd spoken to historically had said we need to see additional rooftops on this site in order for us to be interested in moving forward.
And I think, I'm sorry, Don, I think one of the things I was pointing out with one of the earlier slides is that while we are tasked with focusing on this site, you know, we have a significant amount of acreage with the Kirkwood piece across the street that's a PCD. You know, we are in a portion of the township where I think your question is appropriate from a scale perspective. We think we'll have a direct impact. We know we'll have a direct impact on this site, and potentially that can go beyond that site across 23 as well. So.
You mentioned that you have, as far as the conceptual commercial design section, are there specific developers or tenants that you have spoken to that you can share with us, who you've talked to that is interested?
No, and that's what I tried to get across in my presentation, and that these events have changed what we consider as retail and office. We've seen very little office. We've seen some of that on the west side of 270 in Hilliard that's being done. But other than that, we're not seeing office anywhere. What we're seeing, one of the things I tried to also, the 23 acres is just too much commercial. And when we start to narrow down that commercial, we start to take a look at what I call neighborhood type uses, those uses that really need those rooftops. It may be a small gym, it may be a doctor's or dentist's office, it might be the dry cleaners, coffee shops. You know, our thought would be that there'd be at least one small strip center and a couple out parcels to take advantage of those ponds for a restaurant use. You know, the fact that people could walk to this commercial really impacts the use of a restaurant in the outdoor patio area. And that's, so to answer your question, you know, all those components, all those houses help. But we lose a lot of the traffic on 23 because we lose that right in, right out. And so we're really looking inner and to the EPCON development, to the developments that's being proposed tonight, and all the residential you've been talking about.
There was a comment made about typically residential is developed first and then commercial is developed second. Just my experience in the 3 years that we've been here, I think it was probably my first zoning hearing was the BJ's property, and that was one that was commercial, residential, and then some outlots. And granted, it's a big box, but that residential has not yet been developed. So that commercial was developed first. And again, big box is different than our strip malls and that kind of stuff. So just a comment that has not been my experience. But again, that's not really an apples to apples comparison. Speaking about ODOT, and I have a copy of their, what my understanding is the most current of their draft proposal is for the 23 Connect study for here at Home Road. And it shows a traditional freeway interchange at the Home Road intersection. So, which I have a small knowledge of construction and roads. My understanding is that that takes quite a bit of acreage to, say, put in a freeway interchange versus what we currently have is, you know, like an X or a T. Where does that land come from? And again, you may not be able to answer this. If those two northern properties are developed commercially, and could it not be feasible that they would need to purchase from the owner and the landowner those properties rather than developing commercial, to purchase that to build road or freeway?
We've had discussions with ODOT, and they've made it clear that they've not made any decisions. In fact, economics is going to play a big role in what they finally decide. If that commercial gets built before the roadway gets improved, it'll dictate then what kind of an intersection that is. But right now, these the intersection that they're talking about would actually also eliminate any access off of Home Road into this site. And I've had discussions with ODOT principles, and they believe that although the regular interchange is what would be preferred, they don't believe they can economically afford it, and they think that there are alternatives that solve their same problem. And that problem is curb cuts on the 23. But that's a good question. I mean, you know, we've considered it, absolutely.
They've also, just so that we're all aware, they've also talked about that same type of freeway interchange at, say, the intersection of 23 and 750, which has pretty much all developed, so I was assuming that they would be purchasing existing properties, demolishing them, and then building the roads.
Which becomes very expensive, and which is going to really dictate how that road eventually gets constructed.
Oh, the bike repair station, that's a nice feature for the community. Is it basically the same thing as what we have on the opposite side of the bridge that's already installed by the township over by Mount Carmel?
Candidly, I'm not familiar with that, but I would tend to be inclined to guess it would
Okay.
would be something.
It's
similar.
nice to have one on this side of the road, or side of 23.
Yeah.
I like the path around the pool, or the pond, sorry, not the pool. Just another question. So is Murata one of Vision's properties as well, south on
We
23?
developed it, correct.
And do you still manage it, or do you?
not manage that anymore.
Okay. And how long from when you developed it to then was it sold to a different property manager?
That preceded my.
I'm sorry, can you make sure the microphone, I wasn't
Sorry.
able to even catch Todd earlier, so
I'm sorry.
you're
I should
fine.
know.
Erica, when that was built and sold was before I was with the company. So I would be speculating. I don't know.
Is it a similar quality of construction that the Vision built whenever that was to what they're building now?
Yes, I think this project will actually be even elevated from that, to be honest. It's a different product type, but it's going to look different.
Right.
Peaked roofs, smaller unit count. It'll be a higher quality construction, though.
Will there be a different wall type between units?
I can't answer that question today.
Those were my comments.
Oh, okay. I have a whole bunch of questions for you. First of all, I was in zoning for many years, since 1998, so I'm familiar with, you know, this whole history of this property. I do not remember a Kroger and Target being considered. Do you know when that was?
It was during the, again, I'm hearing this from the owner, we've had that discussion, and I've been involved in this project back and forth from time to time.
Don, sorry, can you move the mic, sorry.
I'm not suggesting that there was an application for each of those. They came forward, I think they talked to city officials, township officials, and they either went forward with it and then was denied, or they decided to stop a project or not even to start the project. But I think that all of those users were at one time publicized in a paper or suggesting that they were coming, and that's why we mentioned that.
Okay, yeah, because I don't recall any formal applications
Right.
for those two, and maybe they came in because there were not supposed to be, I think, any big boxes in
Right.
that location, correct? Okay. I just-
All the uses that I named would have required some modification to the zoning that was in effect at the time.
Okay, yeah, because I was also here when they did the land use plan, and they specifically said no big
Correct.
boxes, and there was a reason that, you know, we put that into place. We didn't want any more big boxes, but, so, are there any, am I missing, are there zoning standards that are put into place for the planned commercial in this application? Like, I didn't see anybody, I might have missed it.
Yeah, no, we actually utilize the existing PCD development text and standards as our basis for modification. So all of our submittal packets have included all those standards, both for the PCD and then also for the additional.
So the only thing it's missing is just the rendering of what it would look like. You have all the materials and everything else in there.
Yes, yeah, apologize to maybe confuse that issue. But that is correct. Those commercial exhibits that you saw tonight, we've been kind of working on those, and they were not part of the resubmission that we gave. But the standards that were in place previously, the divergences that were listed by Robin, some of those divergences are needed to support the commercial development, and that's why they were left in there, and they will not have any bearing on the residential. And then we provided some additional divergences that were related to our residential use, so.
Okay, so we don't have a site rendering as to what it would look like, but the standards are in here, okay. So basically, so would you receive the right-in, right-out if it was to be a commercial property, or would they said no right-in, right-out whatsoever?
The right-in, right-out got approved as a part of the zoning, and at the time, we had a sign-off with ODOT and the county that we could use the right-in, right-out. Because of the proposed changes to 23, we've been told now that that will go away.
So they're just taking it away, even though
They're
they
taking it
approved
away.
it, regardless of the use?
Well, we never got a official curb cut in terms of going forward and doing the engineering and all that. So, but it was easy for them to take it away because we really didn't have it
Didn't actually have
physically.
it.
Correct.
Oh, okay, all right. And then where did you say a potential hotel could go? Was that parcel 3? One. Oh, sorry, okay, that's 1. Parcel 1 on the other
Parcel
side.
1's where we're demonstrating it in that plan. Maybe if, I'm not sure, Michelle, are you controlling that, or?
Yeah.
Would you mind maybe just scrolling forward to the 3 or 4 slides, probably? We can keep going if you, keep going.
What are we looking for?
Yeah, keep going. There'll be a site plan that shows the commercial that we were proposing.
Hypothetical commercial.
And right there is appropriate. So, we think the uses, the composition uses that we're demonstrating here, we think are appropriate and are viable and would be something that would be considered. That hotel use potentially could be on the south side too, potentially. But it works really nicely up there. I think there may have been some very casual conversations throughout some of this entire process where there's been a little bit of discussion about, is there an opportunity for something like that? I can't speak directly to that, Pete could, but.
I'm aware of a hotel developer that has interest in the north side.
Just a normal, regular hotel, like,
A flag we're all familiar with, yes.
okay.
Nothing with individual swim pools.
All right. No adult hotels, okay.
I don't know the details of that. I just know that they had interest in the northern parcel.
Okay, so just a normal, like, Hampton or something. Okay, so, oops, I lost my list. Let's see. So what is the, now, the one thing I did appreciate is that you showed what it could potentially look like if it was developed commercially. And those buildings, were they 50 feet tall, the ones in the exhibit, right?
The perspectives that we had.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What could be built.
And that's really what we're trying to communicate is what does a 50-foot mass look like?
Yeah.
But yeah, that represents a 50-foot height along Gooding.
Even though it might, I don't know if the zoning commission would accept that style of building, but it was useful, so, because whatever is developed here, it could technically be 50 feet tall in the future, so that's something everyone needs to be aware of. You could build very easily, with very few objections, a 50-foot tall commercial building, like as was shown, maybe a little bit more attractive.
Sure.
So that was one, that was very useful. But let's see, so what is the density then? That's parcel 3. What is the actual density? Is it true that it's 13 units per acre on that particular, on the piece?
So the density calculation that's on the site plan that we have is calculated how the township calculates density, and it's for the entirety of the the entirety of the PCD, the residual PCD acreage that we have.
Okay, so, but just on that specific piece, that's like almost 13 units per acre, correct? I'm not aware of any development in the township that has that type of density on a single piece. Was any kind of traffic study done? Okay, and how many additional trips will this include per day?
I do. I just got a picture which.
So if you look at the last page on the traffic report for East Key Ferris, correct me if I'm wrong, so if I'm incorrect. So my understanding is if it's developed, it would be like 1,500 trips per day?
At the 196 units? I guess it's probably,
It's actually, this must have been done with the original 220, so,
so it's probably similar.
I mean, 1,350, 1,300.
Okay. Okay, does anyone know how that would compare to a comparable commercial development?
Yeah, if you'd be okay with it, let me peruse this. I have the specific details, and I actually have it, which I think is what you're getting at. We can demonstrate how the impact of the residential use reduces the overall impact of traffic as a comparison of if this was all commercial versus.
You're saying fewer trips per day if it's residential
It is
versus
a reduction
commercial?
of,
Okay.
if we do a comparison of just the portion, and this is how we looked at it, we did a pro rata version of
Mm-hmm.
the residential acreage that we have, and we compared it to the original traffic study that was done, the uses, the square footages, all those things, and we did a comparison, and there was a significant reduction of what, I mean, we're adding traffic, but the reduction comparative to what an all-commercial development would be
Would
is
be.
significantly lower, yeah.
Okay, and do you know how many children are anticipated to live here?
How many, like? two
School
bedroom,
age,
one
like school age children, I should
Yeah.
say. Like total for the development?
So on average, every community that we build, we projected 7% of the units will derive ahead into the schools.
One single,
Yep.
and is that, has it been
That's based on
similar?
a track record statewide of all the communities that we've developed.
And then,
It's also the BIA standard in Central Ohio is approximately 7%.
school age child per unit. And is that, you might not know, but at Marada, did you just build that and then, did you say you sold that right away? Or do you know what this,
No, we didn't sell that right away. I don't recall what
you
the,
don't know?
what the
Okay.
student count at
Was
Nevada
it
was.
similar to that, or you probably don't know?
I suspect.
So that
Okay.
would be 28 students, it was 196 units, 7% of that. Hold on.
Or 14.
I did that wrong.
No,
I think
it's less.
14 students?
Yeah, 14.
You know, to answer your question about the traffic study, and I hate to refer to Columbus all the time, but if I'm in Columbus and I'm rezoning my property from commercial to residential, I don't have to do a traffic study because it's automatically, it's less traffic. What changes is the timing of the traffic, but I do not have to do a traffic study because it's not an increase in the traffic density.
And we've heard with other applications that residential produces less traffic than
Yeah.
commercial, so that's not.
Yeah, that seems right.
to us.
And then, do you know what the approximate rental rate is planned to be for the units?
Sure, yep. Pull that up. All right, so our one bed, one bath, $1,454 per month. Two bed, two bath, $1,706 per month. I can go through all the different unit types, but
Yeah,
on
sure.
average, throughout the 196 units, $1,766 per month is the rent,
That's the average?
as of right now. By the
So-
time that we actually close and construct this, I suspect there'll be a readjustment up.
And what's the largest unit that you have?
The largest unit we have is a three bed, three bath,
And how much does that go for?
about $2,600 per month.
Can you, so this is not low-income housing?
Yeah, that was,
No.
that was my next.
Expensive housing. Can you tell us the breakdown of like one beds, two beds, three beds?
Yeah.
Yeah, he
So
just
we've,
said
yeah,
1454.
so we've got
1706.
8 of our units are particular one bed, one bath style. We have 24 two bed, two bath units. We have 4 additional one bed, one bath unit type, an additional 32 unit one bed, one bath type, an additional 12 one bed, one bath type, an additional 12 one bed, one bath type, 24 two bed, two bath type, 48 unit two bed, two bath type, 4 two bed, 2.5 bath type, 8 two bed, 2.5 bath type, and then finally 8 three bed, three bath types. And I can send this, additionally another time too. if you
Yeah,
want.
okay, so
We have
yeah,
many different unit types.
definitely not affordable housing, because I know the property is worth too much to have affordable housing. I mean, really, it's hard to have affordable housing with a property that's worth a lot of money in this area, but that's higher than some people's mortgage payments. Depending, it's higher than mine. So, and I guess it depends how long you've lived at your house. I've lived at mine for 20 years. So, so the trips per, you said the trips per day, hold on a second, kids. So, let's see. Hold on. So in the land use plan, let's see here. In the, what's the maximum height for residential development? Is it 35? Okay.
And is there, Robin, a regulation on quantity of stories in the, or is it just building height?
No, we regulate that by building height, which in the multifamily plant residential district is 35 feet.
Just 35. So you could have a 3-story building that would be 35.
Correct.
Yeah, max. Okay, that makes sense. So let's see here. So our land use plan, I was thinking that in the township we have, as far as like multifamily units, oh, I had that right here. We have, I don't know, like 2,500 multifamily units in the township, or 2,256. And Robin, do you know how many housing units we have total in the township? Like 12,000, or is that about right?
11,000, 12,000, somewhere
Okay.
in that neighborhood.
So we have about 20% of our current housing is actually multifamily. That does include the higher end, the condos and things like Clear Creek. So we do have quite a bit of attached or multifamily housing. I'm not sure how many apartments we have. There were a bunch of apartments that were approved. Now, I'm not opposed to apartments, but we have recently built hundreds over the last few years. During my time out of office for 2 years, there were hundreds built and planned. We have a lot of apartments here. Our land use plan, we make exceptions to the land use plan says plan commercial, and we only make exceptions if it benefits the residents. We don't have to accept this, we don't need to approve this if it does not benefit the residents or we don't think this would be helpful for our general welfare. So how does this plan help the existing residents that live here today? What's the benefit to them?
I think generally speaking, the benefit to them today is knowing that in order for the rest of this site to develop thoughtfully, as it should be in the future, that there's certain uses that have to precede the commercial and the retail, those things that the people do want to see. I think it's a necessary step in order to see the site develop the best way possible, but I also think it's sort of outward looking to future generations who are going to live here. So you can develop it how it currently is zoned today. I don't think that's the best plan outward looking. But as it is today, sitting here right now, why is it beneficial? This is taking the steps that are needed to eventually have the best possible site you can.
Okay, so as you know, we met and spent several hours talking about this project, maybe up to 4. And at first, you'd mentioned apartments. I'm like, oh, no more apartments. But then we discussed a special mixed-use plan, and we discussed it in depth. And I actually got excited because I thought there would be first floor commercial with some maybe apartments on top. We talked about a pizza shop, ice cream shop, maybe a Lego building shop. We talked about a potential middle ground of an acre where people could come and hang out, play Frisbee, eat ice cream. And we talked about how many rooftops there are in the area and how something like that, I mean, I'm not a developer, but I've been in zoning a long time. I know we don't need more strip centers. We don't need more big boxes. We don't need any of that stuff. Maybe a few nice sit-down restaurants. But in this case, I know that there are thousands of people within a very small area that would love to walk to a pizza shop, that would love to walk to an ice cream shop, that would love to walk to a bar, and they can walk back safely. There's so much potential for this property. And I thought you got excited too. We were talking about, fountains and play areas and just everything that this site could have been. And then you came back and you had just apartments. And I can't even tell you how disappointed I was when you came back with the same thing. And then we had another conversation, and I know you told me you are not a commercial builder, and you do apartments, which is true, and I mean, I think the Marauders, those are fine in that area, that's City of Columbus. But I do not see any benefit at all to just building. I feel like it's a money grab. I feel like I feel like just building only apartments, and who knows what is going to be built in the future for the commercial. Absolutely no guarantees. You could build a giant medical office building. You could build just a giant building in general. That doesn't help the residents at all. So I'm just so disappointed after the potential that I saw in this property to make it something unique that wasn't just, like I said, another strip center with, their vape shop or whatever, the last thing we need here. It was something where you have all these people, and we have nice homes, people making nice incomes, people with money to spend, people with time to spend a lot of times, especially some of our retired community, plenty of kids in the North Orange area, so many possibilities to make this a vibrant community with, I was willing to possibly grant apartments with the idea of it would be like a vibrant little small town atmosphere, like a mini village style. And this is diametrically opposed to that. I appreciate that you took some of the units out, but I feel that this project is completely unsuitable for this parcel, just to be blunt about it. I see absolutely nothing that benefits any of our residents. I see more cars, I see more apartments. I appreciate, I know you put a lot of time and effort in this, and this could go commercial. We could have 50-foot tall buildings in the future. It's something we all need to think about, which is the better. But for now, I don't see anything special or unique. I don't see any reason to violate our existing land use plan that shows this as being commercial at this point. So that's my last statement or question.
Wanted to thank our residents for sending all your comments. I read all of them. I responded to as many as I could. Thank you for that. I'm glad to know that so many of you have read our comprehensive land use plan before you purchased your properties in the community, because we did put a lot of time. I know Michelle and Lisa were both here at that time, put a lot of time and effort and resources into that. So thank you for doing your due diligence with that. Just some comments as we kind of clarify, these are not low-income apartments, these are high-rent apartments. Just some of the comments in the emails that we got. Apartment renters do pay taxes, it's just simply moved into their rent. So just so we're all clear, everybody who lives in the township pays taxes. Sometimes it comes with our mortgage bill, sometimes it comes with their rent bill. Some of us have it outside of escrow, and I just pay the bill twice a year.
Yes, and that would be taxed as commercial property at a higher rate. So they do pay taxes on
They
it.
actually pay a higher percentage.
And the rates the rental rates that they shared are similar. I was just checking in the surrounding apartments across the street. It's very comparable.
Okay.
So it is a high rent.
Yes. Yeah, but people talk about the need for more houses and more affordable houses, but even though I don't think I would want that here anyway, but you can't say that we need more housing that's affordable and then build high-end, even though we would rather have high-end.
And then just for the applicant, if we want to do multifamily, we should ask to rezone as multifamily and then follow the multifamily rules.
Yes, that's an excellent, good point.
So, same as Lisa, if this was coming as a mixed-use development and there was commercial and residential at the same time, and we had a true understanding of what we were getting.
Yes.
That would fit better.
It could be anything at this point, as long as it meets the plan.
I mean, it would have to be rezoned to allow multifamily or to do mixed use.
But if this was approved now, I think they could build anything they
Or
want.
nothing, because it could be taken up by an interchange.
Yes, and then later they can come back and ask for it to be rezoned for more apartments.
Well, I think the current application is just, talking about allowing for multifamily to be built within the third parcel.
Correct.
So it wouldn't change the plan for 1 and 2. Those would stay
Yeah.
under
If
the
they could
current
come back-
commercial rules.
If they chose to come back as separate.
Oh, yeah, they can come
Yeah.
back and rezone any property,
Right.
yeah.
But again.
They'll say we can't build commercial on this, so we'd like it to be more apartments. I've seen it.
So, but if we were doing a multifamily, you're building a multifamily development, follow the multifamily rules.
Yeah.
The zoning code that we have in the township is where my.
Yeah, and then there would have been more details on the plain commercial with some renderings, and we put limitations on square footage and number of units per building and that kind of thing.
More comments, or
that all?
should we open it up for public?
You know, and if I might respond to that, I
Oh,
mean.
go ahead.
Because the property owner's getting to the point where he can make commitments in terms of elevations, if that's what we're talking about, I mean, we'd be prepared to do something to that effect. The 10 acres allows us to now focus on a smaller area and to maybe accomplish exactly what you're talking about.
On this parcel?
On what I call Phase 3.
Yeah, I don't object to that too much, but again, I haven't seen a commercial development where you come in with a blank piece of land and you don't, well, we'd like this strip center here, and then the zoning commission's like, well, we want a maximum of 4 users and all these details. And this is kind of a pig in a poke right now, to be honest.
Well, it's always going to be for retail. I mean, and even if we came in, we would show locations with the understanding that when a tenant comes in, they may have to shift in terms of the size. But we'd be prepared to do that.
But then you would put limitations like we don't want any more than 4, uses per building, or we want this, each part to be no longer than 100 feet, or, whatever, things like
And
that.
typically, those restrictions are common sense restrictions. I mean, from the market,
Yeah.
I can make limitations based on what I expect in the market.
Yeah, but then you build a bunch of apartments and then maybe an office building, and then again, no benefit to the current residents.
And we have to make a decision on what we've been given today.
I understand.
Yeah, I don't see that this is fixable at this point. For me, I'm only one of 3, but like I said, this is just more apartments.
Yeah, and from the property owner's perspective, we're looking for direction as well. I mean, we've got this property, residential really makes sense, it really helps the 10 acres of commercial. We'd like to see that happen, and we're willing to make commitments, whether it's in a separate separate application, but again, we are at that point that with limiting the commercial from 23 acres to 10, that's something my client can do as a developer/owner.
And the 10 on the north side of home.
Yes. Well, there's 4 acres on the north side.
The
of
south,
home.
or the parcel furthest to the south.
Yeah, on parcel, and I would, and our focus would be not on north of home, it would be south of home road where the real focus would be.
So you would just drop the other 2 parcels that you're saying, and just do the apartments?
No, what I'm saying is that, in combination with the apartments that we're talking about tonight, we would do we could
site
make
plans,
commitments
okay.
to that portion of the commercial that's south of Home Road.
But they'd still be
North
set.
of Home Road is much more speculative in terms of what happens, because the impact of 23 is going to be more felt on
Yeah,
the
and that's not
north
as much
side.
of a concern because it's further from the residents. But are you willing to change your plan to make it something like an actual mixed use with first floor retail and apartments above it, and integrate commercial into it? Because to me, I thought you were doing both separately, and that was,
Again, separate and apart from the zoning that we're talking about tonight, because we want that residential for our 10 acres, but there is a prototype that a client of mine is working on in Grove City that actually has ground floor retail, second floor office, and third floor residential. And in addition to what they're proposing, we might be able to commit to some of that as well. I mean, it's a good-looking building, and it's popular.
how many stories is it, 3?
It's 3 stories, some of it's 2 stories.
I mean, how drastic do the changes have to be for them to reapply? Or can they just change anything?
Doing it, I'm comfortable making a decision on what we've been given today.
Yeah.
A yes or no on what we've been
Yes,
given today.
yeah.
If you guys want to propose something else and come back and
Re-
the process again, start from scratch, if you're proposing a completely different, this isn't, what I'm hearing you say is not, we're going to reorientate the buildings and we're going to add some more benches.
Yeah, it'd be really completely different. Yeah. So do we typically ask for a whole new rezone? How much, okay, I won't ask that question, but it is expensive to go through the zoning process. So I do
Could the same
understand
be
that.
achieved through a continuance?
Huh?
Or,
Yeah,
sorry,
that's what I was
tabling?
saying. We could actually continue it if they wanted to bring
Because if
something.
you table it, then it would be,
there a way to get it back through the process again? Get it back through regional plan and get it back through the zoning commission? No.
You have to just, yeah, basically, it would almost be, it probably would be
The
a whole new
applicant would
project.
have to withdraw their application and start over. Or
Yeah.
we render a decision and then, yeah.
Yeah, they could, I agree, though. It would have to be so different that I think it would be almost a whole new application.
I need to see the drawings before I can.
Oh, yeah.
I'm a visual person, so.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, they would have to continue and come back with a whole new plan, but, I've already asked for it twice, so,
That sounds like it's really like an decision of the developer.
If I can speak a little bit, my name's Connie Klima. I work with Vision also. I'm an attorney that works.
Sorry, the speakers don't really work.
is the microphone working? Is it on?
It goes into YouTube, but it's a.
I'm Connie Klima, and I work with Vision. Sorry, my voice has been bad from a cold. I've been listening to the conversations. I've been at the hearings for the zoning commission. And I, too, have been in zoning for a long time and understand what you're talking about. One of the things, several things I want to point out, though, that's very interesting to me that lands us here tonight is this. The typical mixed-use development we think of, the small town idea, is a beautiful idea where you've got the retail on the first floor and you've got people living above. I love that look. I love the central idea, fountains and all that. And then you look at this space here right now as it's zoned as a planned commercial district with no potential for residential at all. And we see to date, nothing has happened there. It's a field. And it's next to 23, and it's a vital area of your township. And it's not going to be developed until there is more rooftops. So if we leave tonight and we're denied, that's going to continue there because no rooftops will be permitted, and the mixed use won't be permitted. And EPCON, who also came in and was part of the original 85 acres, EPCON came in to a future land use plan and zoning that said it should be multifamily apartments and office. And they requested a rezoning to single family, and from 45 units to 130 some units, increased the density, increased the use, violated the comprehensive plan, and veered off the actual zoning, and it was supported. And as I said at the Planning Commission, I'm glad it was. I think it was a great addition. Now you have a lot of people that are part of this 85 acres that are now happy and residing in their beautiful EPCON units, which they are, but they're saying now that we're here, we don't want anything to happen differently over there. We know it's supposed to be all commercial, probably not going to change, and if they do build the 5-unit, we're going to be fine with it. I don't think they will be. I know that people have talked about what 5 units does and looking out a window and this and that. I can tell you this. I have a 6-story office in downtown Columbus, and I sit right next to that window because I like to look out. When I'm in an office setting, I look out my window more at what's across the street than when I'm home in my bedroom and I shut the blinds. So I can say this, but Vision did what they said they'd do. They lowered it. Now, this idea of, oh, but here's your commercial spot and here's your residential. Well, unfortunately, maybe we did this wrong. What happened was is we came in and we met numerous times with staff, and they said, we want to keep a commercial component. It's already gone through the township, and they've already looked at all of the details that they're supposed to do, and they like what they approved. If you want to implement a residential in that, make it an amendment or a divergence and go back with the same PCD. So that's what we did. And unfortunately, at the beginning, we didn't have anything showing the commercial because we assumed everybody knew that's commercial. It's already been before this township. They've already seen what can be there. They already know that. So we only showed the residential, and more it's considered a separate thing. Then we go to the Regional Planning Commission, and they say, well, even if you did do a multifamily, you'd come back, it would look the same, and you'd have the same number of divergences, just like BJ's. BJ went in and said, we want to have a mixed use. We're going to have apartments here, and we're going to have outlots here, and we're going to have a big box here. They separated them all, and it got approved. Now, when we came in, we said, well, obviously, Vision is an upscale developer. It doesn't do second, third floor over commercial. It's not what they do. But the family that owns this, the Block family, says, this is great if you can combine it with our commercial area, and finally maybe something will happen, because nobody wants to be here. No one's coming because we don't have enough people. So in the last probably month or two, what's happened is, Mr. Block, basically, they've been talking about how to make that happen more, where we can have fountains, where we can have areas where people are literally coming outside, walking over, sitting down, and having a lighted patio and talking, where EPCON people can come over and walk on the trails and be there. And I think that if you can at least give us the time and not go back, but table it and say, look, we'll show you more detailed plans of how this type of a development that Vision wants, which is high-end, which goes away if you don't approve it, and leaves again a field of 20-some acres that only can be commercial or office or a 5-story hospital or whatever you want to say. And let us see if we can satisfy that dream, because we know that we have a creative seller. He's like, I've been to Europe, I've seen how great it is. You've got little areas where people are getting coffee off this little area. You know, we can look at that. We didn't do it before, you're right. And I can understand why it would be disappointing, because if you have a vision of something like that and you don't get it and you think, oh gosh, it's a high-rise apartment complex, this is not just a high-rise apartment complex. This is a 3-story and 2-story units that are high-end, that wants to have their residential people able to sit down and get a beer after work next to the pond. We want that too. I would like to have this tabled so we have that opportunity to come back with the pictures, and then you can disapprove it if you don't think it works.
How many, remind me again, parcel 2 is how many acres? 10?
About 10 acres, correct. Yes.
Okay.
Just a little under 8.
So,
Actually, a little over 10.
so I think when we also had our meetings, I expressed that that was just way too many apartments anyway for the entire development in general, whatever you had said. I think you were proposing closer to 300 then, but I still think it's too dense. Now, wait, you said, so you talked about the EPCON zoning, and you said it was supposed to be how many acres?
It was, under the future land use plan and also the zoning, it was supposed to be 45 units, which was going to be 15 buildings with 3 units each, and office on the north portion. And they got it rezoned to 134 singles.
Are you speaking of just the EPCON?
Yeah, portion, yeah. And that's what the original zoning of this area was.
It was going to be multifamily?
Yeah, it was supposed to be multifamily. Yep.
But
We can read it.
it was actually supposed to be, and then it was supposed to be single family at some point.
It was supposed to be multifamily. I can read right out of the report from the Delaware Planning County 2018 report. Let me just read it real quick here.
45 units. So it's 45 units on, originally 45?
On the west side of Gooding, or inclusive?
On the west side of Gooding.
So 45 single-family,
45 multifamily units.
45
It's supposed to be
on,
15 buildings.
apartments.
Yeah, apartments.
wait, how many? Wait,
15 buildings with 3 units each was what it was supposed
for
to be.
45 on 50 acres?
No, this was on this portion of the 85 acres where EPCON is. That's what it was planned for.
Where EPCON is currently, on that 50
Yeah.
acres. So 45,
Okay, a 14-acre multifamily
Oh,
area
14.
designated with 45 housing units in 15 3-unit buildings. The plan included the relocation of Home Road to a location more appropriate for further extension to the east. And office uses were intended for the area west of Gooding, but north of a small wooded ravine, with the multifamily development, which is now where EPCON is, south of that ravine as a buffer against the condos to the south. That's basically what it was proposed to
Well,
be when it,
that's all west.
yeah, that's the portion, what I'm trying to point out is that
That was what EPCON was supposed to be initially.
Well, before EPCON came, yes, yes.
Not
And EPCON came in and said not 45 units, but 130 some.
And
No commercial,
But-
no office, and also, basically, they asked for 8 divergences.
But what happened to the rest of the acreage? You said 45 units on 15 acres, and now
They used the acreage that EPCON has is basically accommodates the 130 some acres, which was the northern piece and the south.
So it's 130 units on 49.8 acres currently on the EPCON.
I can go through the divergences
Clear
for
Creek.
you that they got.
But the thing is, so that's 50 acres, and we did decide to diverge, because I was here for that decision, because that was more of empty nester style housing, very few children, and I think the difference, they might be bringing about $1.2 million of tax money.
Yeah,
those are-
these are all, and that's what I'm saying.
but they're-
Isn't that a beautiful thing to have them there? EPCON didn't go where we're requesting to go for a good reason. Right next to 23, between Gooding, and they're not going to go there.
But there's 640, so there's,
So-
some of those houses are worth $600,000. They're paying a lot of taxes, very few children. So we did a net benefit, and it was like, between the school children that wouldn't be living in, some of that was supposed to be single family too, and the reduction in the number of students, plus the additional revenue from the more empty nester style, was like $2 million a year difference. So,
Trustee Knapp?
Yeah.
Should we maybe open it up for public comment? And then we can come back to the point.
yeah, I do have one more question, though. So, wait, I just want to say, so 200 units is enough to make, 200 units of rooftops in addition to all of this is enough to make this project viable. That doesn't seem right. There are thousands of people that live nearby and could use the commercial, and I don't think 200 units, I don't buy that argument. That's 200 units on
The type of commercial that the owner and Vision would like to have there is not a 5-story office building. It is what Don Plank was explaining, to be the residential, local places to go. And those places are not knocking on the door and haven't been, and do want more residential.
Okay, yeah, we'll do public
Yeah.
comment.
All right, so we're going to open it up for public comment. If you would like to speak, please come up to the podium. There's a microphone. Please state your name, address, direct your comments to the board, not the applicant. And then after we've received all the public comment, if you have specific questions, the board will pose those to the applicant and get those answered. We might open up public comment again after the board's questions, just in case we missed anything. Please hold your applause till the end of the zoning hearing. That way we can all hear what questions are being asked, and then we can get the answers. The hearing is also recorded, so we want to make sure that anyone who wasn't able to attend today will be able to hear the questions that are asked online. So in no particular order, please feel free to come up to the podium and state your name and address.
Is there anyone here that actually supports this that would like to speak about it? Who's a resident? Okay, I thought maybe they could come up. Is there anyone that, that way we could get an opposing, or is there anyone here that supports it, that would like to come up and speak first? And then okay, so for anyone that comes and speaks, I think the primary concerns were, violates the land use plan, quality of life, too much density, traffic. So when you come up, just so you don't have to repeat yourself, you can just say that you kind of agree with a certain statement that another person made, and that way it goes a little bit faster. Like, I agree with everything she said without having to, give a huge presentation. So go ahead, whoever wants to come up.
Hi, my name is Michelle Schuff. My husband Jim and I live at 7015 Star Hollow Lane. Our house backs up directly to this property. First and foremost, we don't support this for the density and the height issues that have been discussed here. But I'm glad, Lisa Knapp, that you brought up the benefits to us. There are no benefits to us. And we've all talked here, many of these are my neighbors here. We've all talked about, we're not so much opposed to commercial if it provides those amenities that we could walk across the street and have, coffee shops and ice cream, place like that. Why can't that whole area be, developed with that in mind? This type of large apartment complex just doesn't belong in this part of the township. I mean, I feel like there's other pieces of land in the township that they may be more suitable for, but not here. And again, if we had those things that you've talked about, those amenities in the community, we would all be there. we would be there. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Barb Tauscher. I live at 181 Daymark Drive. I agree with everything that Michelle said. Lisa, you summarized it extremely well. All of your questions were very beneficial. Thank you. But I will also state the benefits that it brings to us, and I have thought long and hard about this. There are none. I walk every night. I probably won't be comfortable walking anymore. There's other neighbors that do the same. Will I think twice about pulling out on Gooding Road with all of these cars back and forth at high rush hour time? Absolutely, I will. It will impact my life significantly. I moved here from the city of Chicago, used to walking everywhere and doing everything. I moved here looking at that property across, knowing it was going to be commercial retail. I was fine with that. I understand something will be built there. But when Vision and says that they're going to help, that's speculation. You know, how are you going to build retail and all that there? It's more speculation than actual fact. But I moved here thinking there would be something like that there, where I could go to a coffee shop, I could, go to a bar, which many of us like to do here. We would bring a lot of revenue in, actually. So just in summary, there's no benefit to us, and I ask that you say no to this proposal. And thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Hello, my name is Yuri Starik, and I own the 219 Restoration Drive. First of all, I want to commend this team for amazing presentation. I want to point out a few things. They show the beautiful commercial property, resort-like, except they don't build any of this, so this is just all beautiful picture, and it has no relationship to this meeting whatsoever, because this is about 3-story, 200 apartments, right? So first of all, the pictures shown have no relationship to us. Second thing, also a few numbers that they show. A question. So they say 7% of kids, right? So maybe at Clear Creek, 7% of but if anyone rents 2-bedroom apartment or 3-bedroom apartment, you have kids, right? So there is no reason to rent 3-bedroom apartment if you have no kids. So if you have 3-bedroom apartment, you have at least 1 kid, maybe more. If you have 2-bedroom apartment, you have at least, you probably have a kid. So the 7% I can pull from the air too. Now they also say this is high-end apartment. So high-end apartment cannot be small. They cannot be cramped. They cannot be right next to your neighbors. So they also say, so this is not high-end apartment. This is low-end apartment because they're small. The high-end apartment don't have a garage somewhere. Garage is built in, right? So these apartments are not high-end. Second, they say the price $1,400 and then above. I have doubts too, because you can rent on other side of 23, beautiful big townhouse with a built-in garage, basically for the same money. So I don't think that anyone would rent 1-story cramped apartment without garage for the same money. So I'm a little bit doubt this too. Now about myself, I bought this house actually for my parents. They are 85, very fragile. They enjoy, the highlight of this day is the walk to the library and maybe slow ride to the Kroger or to the Orange Park. So apartments that are proposed, and the reason why we bought it for them, we actually have to cash in our retirement funds. We have to cash in, both my wife's and my 401k, to buy this house, because we consider it to be safe and pleasant till the rest of their life. So this was very important for us. Now, the guarantee that we have was the comprehensive plan. We knew that there would be no something horrible built. Commercial is fine. We look at the Evans Farm, and it's great, right? All these little stores and Taco Bells and ice creams. That's what, thousands of people, hundreds of retirees with their spare money and nowhere to go. So, but that's not what we're talking about here, right? We're talking about 200 apartments. So the reason I think it's a really bad proposal, because if you look at the reviews of apartments that Vision has, so the average rating is about 3.8 out of 5. The comments are pretty consistent. They are cheaply made and badly run. They're very low cost. And the Atmosphere seems very similar. They seem notorious for the kind of dorm-style environment, and you can understand it's a young, vibrant people who living there. They are very affordable apartments. So young, vibrant people bring parties, late night noise, weekend parties, and you know how they drive. They drive fast. They looking at their phone while driving. I would be terrified for my parents walking on the Gooding Boulevard. I am terrified for my son riding a bike there. So then they also mention the traffic. They say residential brings less traffic than commercial. I have really hard time believing that, because if you look at the, I look at the Institute of Transportation Engineers, they have a guideline. They say the apartments generate about 10 cars per day. So 200 apartments, we're talking about 2,000 car trips a day. So the commercial, this is any day of the night, this is weekends, this is any time of the day. So commercials don't create that. Now, when I drive my son to work, I go on the home to 23, two traffic cycles of the traffic light. I cannot go through that traffic light. 400 cars more, maybe 500s. Are we going to stay there forever? So we're going to just park there and idle there. So I don't find that either completely correct. Then they talk about the property value. So I think once they build it, I don't think that people would be, my parents, the house that I have, where my parents live, is in direct line of view for their proposed apartments. I don't think anyone would buy it. Or, I mean, they would buy it, but I have to drop the price probably half. So if the property value drops, so will tax revenue, if I understand it right. So also new young people bring children. 2 or 3 bedroom apartments means children. Children means we need to expand our schools. We need new taxes and new levies. And I think all of this we shouldn't discuss. We should discuss we have comprehensive plan. We all invested in this community based on this plan. This plan designed for the long-term strategic growth of Orange County. It was great. We love Orange Township. It's great, right? So why are we discussing changing it? And this is it. And thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Good evening. My name is Richard Kite. My wife Debbie and I live at 326 Parkgate Court, 43015 in the Clear Creek subdivision, not the Epcon subdivision, the Clear Creek subdivision. What I wanted to tell you is that, and I did send an email, and I know you've all read it. I received a comment back. I appreciate that. My wife and I do not object to residential use on this part of the site. I think it could add to the blend of uses that could go here. We also found Vision to be a worthy applicant. They met with us, they listened, they made some changes. They just couldn't make the changes that we think are most important, which is the overall density and the overall height. Orange Township has standards for multifamily development. Standards are 35-foot height, and at a maximum, 8 units per acre. This greatly exceeds that. They're not able to reduce the scale of their development to meet those standards. I think if Orange Township wants to consider changing standards for multifamily, you ought to do it by changing your code, not by one application at a time, using the divergence method. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there
Anybody
additional
else?
public comments?
Hi, I'm Elaine Damo, 6990 Star Hollow Lane. I agree with everything that was said, and I just want to add that luxury housing, affordable housing, it doesn't matter, it's just too dense. We're worried about the parking spillover in our neighborhood, especially since the parking is not meeting the code standards. We're also worried about light pollution, honestly. They're asking for a divergence on that. I don't purport to understand the mechanics of that,
but that's a concern, and we just hope that you deny this request so that you can protect the $1.2 million income base that we as a neighborhood who clearly are showing up because we care. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional public comments?
What do you say?
That could possibly set me off, but I won't let it. I'm in the third wave, so Rosemary Ebner Pomeroy, my husband, and I live at 233 Parkgate Court, Delaware, Ohio. I basically concur with everything our neighbor and friend Rich Kite said, as well as Michelle and Barb. Again, too tall, too dense. Mark and I enjoy driving around, particularly in the early part of the pandemic, looking at development. My dad was a real estate attorney and wanted to follow in his footsteps, which I didn't do, but we drove out to Hilliard. And I'm from Michigan originally, so I'm not crazy about Hilliard. No offense to anybody who came from there, but I looked at those apartments, and what's the point of Orange Township when you've already created a library, access to a fitness center, a park with walking trails, place for kids to hang out, really nice schools, a beautiful public pool set up. We've already created a certain feel in the neighborhood, a certain ambiance. I came from Worthington, I lived there for 20 years, where development was, I'm not a development expert, but everything was very tight and orchestrated in terms of how things could go, and it was a small space. And there still have the empty United Methodist Children's Home property that we all know about. But I think we have to think about that look, that feel, and don't we want to keep that? No offense to Grismer Tire, no offense to the collision places, no offense to BJ's, which I don't know if I would call a place that, but I mean, all these things are okay. But in our little corner of the world, Gooding Boulevard and the surrounding condos, patio homes, full family folks in the North Orange area, I'm not saying it right, but I think we just need to think about, what's the ambiance? We want it to be, it can't be completely idyllic. It's 2024 and now 2025, but I just think we need to keep the feel of the neighborhood. I mean, we've got all these kids in the Olentangy school system, and we have all the third wave citizens. I mean, walking, looking around, seeing the crane at the pond over at the North Orange pond area. It's just so important. So, but we did drive out there and look at it, and so did a few other people in our neighborhood, and it just doesn't fit. And I just think something's got to go in there, but it's just got to be something besides those larger apartments. And I am old, but it's okay.
Thank you. Yeah.
I feel the targets right here. I was trying to avoid that. Jeez. Hi, Justin Gotuso, recent new resident over the summer, 7808 Overland Trail in the North Orange Park neighborhood. We can walk to that amazing park and facility and love it. One question I have is thoughts about where would the revenue go from this development? What other amenities could come out of this, thoughts of just budget-wise for the township, because some of these amenities, there's a lot to, I won't get into everything else with it, but just future-wise for the community, this area has been booming for years. Development will continue in the future, but as a township, as a community of what is that vision? For where are these dollars going to go back into the community? What amenities can revenue from new development go into to help create more of what we want. But then also, going back to developers and here at the table is, personally, I'm speaking for myself too, I want to see great development happen. It's not don't develop, and I'm not sure if anyone's saying no development, but to be very clear as a township, as leaders, elected leaders, so that there's maybe less tension, or just can we be more clear with them of what is that we want for that area and surrounding parcels, in the community. So as developers come in, there's more unity and there's more clarity. Is a concern I have is that I do real estate myself in various ways, and it is very, very frustrating to go through a long process. It is very costly to go through, business needs to continue, and to try to work things out, and how can we progress and move forward, not just know nothing, because someone's going to come and it will be developed at some point, but to be thoughtful about it and to make progress and move forward is my hope.
Well, just to clarify that, we do have the comprehensive land use plan, which was started in 1999 or 2000. I was here back then, and it actually lays out how the entire township is going to be developed. So specifically, this says planned commercial. They're asking for something that's not in the plan, which sometimes we grant if it benefits the community. But it's not. This is not how we intended the township to build out, and in my opinion, brings nothing to the community. So we do have a plan, so people know when they come in and want to develop or build a property, they know what's expected of them. So we do have that covered.
Was it all commercial, was what I was hearing? Was that currently it's like, and that sounds like what nobody wants, is like just a bunch of commercial.
Well, and even some of the other I think part of the other property was possibly commercial or a different type, but we did allow some changes because it benefited the community as a whole. But, so there is a plan out there, and some people ask for exceptions, so.
Great. Well,
thank you.
Just thank you for serving the community.
Thank you. Are there any other public comments?
I would like to make one comment. My name is Jack Reardon. I live at 720 Star Hollow Lane. And my concern was the way the dumpster site was put on this plan, stuffed off in one corner, and there was no way for that drainage underneath that dumpster to be able to get over to the retention pond, which we thought was part of the drainage system, but it's obviously not part of that drainage system. It is part of a system to sell the other side of that property for commercial. So I'm very glad. I hope that you will reject this project.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Josh Trapezano, 550 Trace Drive. Just going to be quick and brief. I agree with pretty much what everyone said. Main thing for me is, again, did my research about the property based off the zoning, knowing full well what's down the street on 23 with Miranda. I did not want that in front of my neighborhood. Not against the development, but the key to me is what Lisa said. How does it benefit the current residents? So just please keep that in mind as we're making our votes. So thank you.
Thank you. Any additional public comments?
Hi, my name's Alicia Whistler. I live in North Orange neighborhood at 547 Trace Drive. And I also have my mom and my brother who live in the Epcot neighborhood. And I really encourage them to move to the Epcot neighborhood because I knew the current zoning, I knew the area and everything that was currently there. I agree with what everyone has said. I don't agree with the high density. I mean, we currently have an apartment complex across 23. I have a child who attends Olentangy and a child who attends Shanahan. And there is a brand-new, huge apartment complex there that, as far as I know, isn't completely open or done building yet. With a new driver that's learning how to drive, it really makes me nervous to bring something like this. I don't know. So, and there's really, I don't see any benefit to anyone that is in the community. And I've talked to many, many people. So that's kind of, so ask me for now.
Thank you. Any additional public comments? All right, we'll go ahead and close public comment. I think we should direct some of those questions that we had back to the applicants. I know one was pretty pointed that Mr. Reardon brought up about the site drainage related to the dumpster. Can you speak to that question?
I apologize, I don't necessarily understand the dumpster part of it. I can communicate that the stormwater basin we have that's centrally located in the site is located where it's at because that's the low part and that is the outlet for our project. And as is the northern part of the site, we have a retention basin up there as well that is a secondary access point for the northern piece. So we've done our homework from an engineering perspective and have located that stuff where we have the dumpster location that we are showing is located in a part of the site that provides the least amount of impact to, external environment outside of the site, and it works for our needs, for Vision's needs from an operational standpoint. So, we'll be required to meet all the county, you guys know this, all the county engineering, everything associated with it. So I feel comfortable with how we have all the stuff, laid out at this point. So,
thank you.
Yeah, and also the county engineer will not allow, you cannot increase the amount of drainage off your property after you develop it. They will not allow that.
We have to maintain the pre-development rate
Yeah.
at a post-development situation. That's correct. So.
Oh, and I do want to note for the record that as much as it looks suspicious that this will generate a lot of children, I've seen over the years that these kind of developments do legitimately create very few children. The 7% is probably accurate, I will say that. And I do think that commercial will bring potentially more traffic, just based on my experience over the decades I've been here. So I did want to make those 2 points in the applicant's favor. Do you have anything else, Erica? So, wait, let me just check. Wait, one more thing. Yeah, that's all I wanted to say.
So.
My official statement. So I did meet, like I said, twice with the applicant, and I specifically said that if this plan was brought back, I would be unlikely to approve it. I kept saying you need it integrated. We would be willing to sacrifice and maybe allow some apartments. I can't remember the figure, or maybe 150, I'm not for sure. But if it brought something to the community, it would be nice maybe to have a few apartments mixed in with the commercial. It would create a little bit more of a vibrant atmosphere. It would create more people who would be using the facilities. Maybe people as kids who live in the area could move there. There's a lot of different benefits to that. But to me, what he brought back was, again, the same exact thing that we have, that I'm just one of three, but the same exact thing that twice we asked for it to be different. So to me, this is 3 strikes and you're out, and I don't think I did consider a continuance, but you can't change an apple to an orange. I don't see how this could be anywhere near. You guys can come back with renderings for the commercial. It's still separate from the multifamily. That doesn't work. It's not technically mixed use. You could come back with all kinds of things, unless you could come back with a completely different project, which, again, I think would require entire new rezoning, because we would need to get regional planning's recommendation and the zoning commission. So I don't see any way at all for this to be approved or continued tonight. So do you have any opinions?
Personally, I think that how it's currently zoned, you could have a 4-story commercial building. I don't think that's what we really want to see for this site. While I would prefer that the entire site remain commercial, to take advantage of that higher, property tax value. I don't know that we're going to see the type of development as Vision has talked about, that the types of uses that we want out of the commercial parts of the site without additional residents. And I think, their commitment to be in our joint economic development district, that means that whatever commercial opportunities get developed, they will be paying income tax to the township, which will help us not only maintain the amenities in the community, such as long-term maintenance of the bridge, roadway maintenance, and other kinds of amenities in that area. What I think the history has shown is that the developer has wanted to propose different, types of commercial development for this site historically, but they've never been given guidance as to, okay, the rules keep changing and we keep trying to, they make a proposal and we say, well, not that proposal, or, okay, here's a new proposal. Well, not that proposal. So I think the board owes the property owner, to some extent, more direction as to, if this isn't the application that we want to see, what would be acceptable for development here, rather than, just a soybean field.
Well, I did discuss this twice with them, and Ted said that, and they said there's no way it can be all commercial, and that makes sense, the same thing. But then the proposal that came back was apartments, and we won't have a JED on the apartments. Is that correct?
I think the parcel can go into the JED, but it will.
Won't generate any revenue?
The holding company that runs the apartment buildings would be subject to the net profits tax, but the residents would not be subject to income tax.
Okay. So they could build the apartments and just hold off on the commercial and never build the commercial. They could do that if this was approved like this, which is why it all should be integrated, in my opinion. I know in the past we've told them maybe what we didn't want to see there, but this time specifically, I really thought I had a decent, or what we discussed was something that was viable for everybody. And that if they just bring back apartments again, in my opinion, that wouldn't work.
To me, it sounds like the applicant is interested in, proposing concrete commercial options. I know that's not what the application we have is before us, because Vision is supposedly only developing residential. They're a residential developer. They're not a commercial developer, so they can't speculate as to what type of commercial use they could build.
Right.
But would that be something that we could entertain as a board, to do a continuance or a tabling to allow the applicant to provide concrete commercial examples?
I thought in the beginning, and then what Erica said changed my mind, that it's so different. It is so different. And I would not approve standalone apartment. I personally would not approve 200 standalone apartments there. It's just like any other, it's just another massive apartment building, and they come back with commercial suggestions, and we approve it. They never build it. They build the apartments first, and they come back for another rezoning, and they argue they haven't been able to develop it the way it was approved, and they have a hardship, and they want to change it. Same thing that's kind of happening here. But I was thinking I would possibly want to do a continuance, but I just don't see that it's possible to change it that much at this point.
I'm of the mindset that, similar to Lisa, Vision has a good, pretty product, like the one over by Mount Carmel I have seen, St. Anne's is one of your developments as well, right? It's beautiful, it backs up to the trail, to the woods, it has a lovely location. It's a different location than this here on 23. My husband and I, we like to walk through houses and buildings when they're under construction. So we walked through that space when it was under construction, and as far as we talked about the size of units, I walked into those, and I walked through a fair number of places under construction, and I was like, gosh, this is small. How in the world can this be, a whole house, a whole apartment for somebody, whether it's, and if you have, I do think when there's 3 bedrooms, there's a chance of kids, but it also could be 3 roommates living together and sharing that space. Now that would be 3 cars, right, typically. So I don't necessarily say that every 3-bedroom unit is going to produce children. It could produce 3 roommates. These are just some different things in my brain, but I would like this property to develop. I would like to, I understand what you're saying as far as needing more beds. I the fact that it has sat vacant for however long, obviously speaks to the fact that people don't want it as it's currently zoned. There, like Lisa said, there are thousands of homes that are quite close to this, so an additional 200 when there's 2,000, or I'm not sure, Robin would know the number better than I would, or 1,500 or 1,000, you know, how much of a delta is really an impact, right? And again, I'm not a developer, so these are.
Thousands, I would say, or over 1,000.
Right. I think that the Home Road 23, all that is a factor. As far as giving them the owner direction, I would like to see, if you're gonna come back with some residential in there, show us the whole thing. When we started the process, you guys, my understanding, we're only talking to Vision, or we were under the impression that Vision was the only one that was having, there was only a conversation happening with Vision. Now we're hearing, yes, we're talking to Vision as far as residential, but we're also talking to these commercial properties as well. Bring everybody to the table, bring the whole kit and caboodle, so we understand what it looks like. And I said from the very beginning, when I also met with Vision a couple times, I don't like the look of the giant, and the buildings got shorter through this process, right? I don't like the look of the large buildings along 23. I don't like the look of the Miranda building closer down to near the south, as far as what matches the rest of Orange Township.
Yeah.
And that's why initially when I met with the developer, I said, pull the properties away from 23 and push it towards Gooding, which then hearing from you guys, and you're saying, no, we don't want it next to us. So I understand, and the rework is fine. Just the thought process is that was my request initially, to keep it looking smaller when I'm looking at it from the 23 side, but I didn't consider, the residents perspective at that point. So I understand that.
But if they would come back with, there would just be apartments on one parcel and commercial on the other. There won't be any different. It's still just another commercial development which they could have on their own, but the apartments are separate.
I would like to come back with a mixed-use development. And I understand that you're saying there's maybe not an appetite for first-floor residential, or first-floor
Commercial.
retail, business apartments, right?
Right.
But what can we do to intermix the sites? And maybe it's not everything in one building, maybe it's a little building of this, and a little building of that, and a little building of that, and a little building of that, where it kind
something
of flows
different.
and we see the whole thing. And we talk about there's no appetite for a 23-acre or 25-acre property. When I looked at the property up at Artesian, just from, you guys know where Artesian is, right? So where Panera and BB Bop and all that kind of stuff, just north of home, basically. That chunk, when you add up all those little parcels together, it's about 19 acres. Now there's like 8 parcels there on the left. So is that something that you as an owner, or representative for the owner, can parcel out?
Yeah,
I can tell you that the suggestion that not anyone wanted to go there for retail, I can tell you there's been a number of fast food restaurants that have looked at that location and want that location, and my client has purposely not, because they want a unified development. But at some point, that may be his only option. And so, and if the suggestion is that it has to be a development that has retail on the bottom and residential on top, there's a small component of the development that could absorb, but not to the extent of what's going to make this development work. I mean, having the apartments and commercial somewhat separated, there may be a better way to make it a little bit more entwined, but what I'm hearing is that I can't get that density. I'm not sure that makes any sense for my property owner.
Then we have an 8 unit per acre, right, rather than for multifamily zoning.
8 units per acre makes sense when you're talking about $110,000 an acre ground. Orange Township has developed to the point where the acreage doesn't justify only 8 units per acre. I mean, you've got to acknowledge that what you've done in Orange Township.
That's why we don't have apartments in that area, though. That's a commercial piece of property. It's not an apartment area, so it's valued much higher.
But property in general in Orange Township, I'm not talking even about this piece, is higher than what 8 units per the acre justifies anymore. I mean, no community goes with just 8 units per acre. They just don't.
I think the highest acre or unit count or density we've approved so far in the township is about 10.5.
Do you guess which neighborhood that is?
That's the ones across the street, the orange grand.
Okay. So, and it falls under our multifamily 35B
They had to apply for divergences.
on height?
Sorry, I'm just trying to
Yeah.
look through it.
Not on height. Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
So do we want to continue it or vote on it?
Erica, do you want to make a motion?
What? Oh, yes. I make a motion to approve Resolution 25 dash, is it?
It's 37.
It is 37, okay, 037 to deny the recommendation. Oh, no, to approve. Whoops. Wait a minute, so,
What's the one that they would want to use?
Yeah, so if I can clarify, because the zoning commission's recommendation was for denial, you are responding to that. So if you
Yeah,
look
so
to
we-
deny the application,
so
you
we-
will adopt the recommendation of denial from the zoning commission.
so we.
So that's on page 3. Is that the third page
Oh, yeah, there
one?
we go, okay. Okay, I make a motion to approve Resolution 25-37 to adopt the recommendation of denial of the zoning commission as to zoning application ZON-24-07 of Vision Acquisitions LLC.
Second.
All right. Trustee Knapp?
Yes?
Trustee Faust?
Yes.
Trustee Ringel?
No.
Okay,
All right.
thank you very much.
Motion carries. Thank you.
So, with that decision being rendered, we'll go ahead and close the hearing. Do I need to make a motion?
No, we just announce it.
All right, the hearing is now closed.
I object. Oh, you did.
No time for objections.